Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Irreverent Therapists. I'm Marilyn Bradford and joined, as per usual, by the amazing Pam Houghteling.
Hello.
Hello. And today our topic is your closet a dark and scary place? Okay. The monster under the bed is now the monster in your closet, or I would say the monster in the back of your brain.
Yes.
Ready to jump out and overwhelm you. There are all kinds of closets and many kinds of monsters. What have you made into a monster? That's the topic, folks.
Gosh, you know what that makes me think of? I can remember being a little kid and teenager, and I would build things into such big, scary problems, and that really probably didn't even exist except in my head.
Right.
Right. I don't know if any of you out there do that or have done that.
It's like we make a mountain out of a rat turd.
Yes. Yes.
I've certainly done that throughout my life.
Yeah. So, Marilyn, what kinds of monsters have you had to in your closet or
Well,
under
my
your bed?
monsters are a lot of what you've been talking about, Pam. Then I take a tiny thing and I make it enormous. Like, oh my God, I haven't paid my taxes. Well, I don't owe any taxes. So yeah, I should do that. I should file, but I don't actually owe any taxes. But
Yeah.
oh my God, the IRS is going to come with like a SWAT team and get me. Probably not. You know, a 75-year-old lady who doesn't owe anything, probably not going to be their target. But that's what we all do. I mean, I've had all kinds of monsters that I created. And really, how much is a monster just what you've been unwilling to acknowledge and be with?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and where we go into like, I'll speak for me. I know when I used to do this, a lot of it was where I didn't feel okay acknowledging myself, standing up for myself,
Yes.
expressing what worked for me. That kind of thing was very hard for me. And so if there was something going on that was like, I mean, I never even allowed anything to be a conflict when I was young. It was like, I do anything and everything to smooth things over. So there was no conflict. But, but like if there was somewhere that maybe there was a conversation to have with someone that was so hard for me that I would build it up and build it up and build them into this scary monster that how could I possibly talk to them? And then when I actually would, it always like immediate, like it deflated everything and there was no problem and it was all fine. And I'd say, well, why do I, let myself do this? But then I would still do it.
So what if all the monsters in your life are actually just creations of yours?
Yeah.
They're not real.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's that point of view and the judgments that you have of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I when you're talking about that, what it made me think of, I was working with someone yesterday and she's like, I just can't stand up to my parents. So just what you were saying, the monster was, so I'm always asking, so what would that create? What if you did that? And this is what I really want to encourage all of you to ask. Okay, take your scariest monster and ask, well, what if I stood up to or talked to or did this? What would that actually create? And it's amazing, just like you said, it's probably not going to be what you think it is. And even if those people then become very angry with you, so what?
Yeah.
This was a situation where the mother needed to control the children through money. And if this daughter said, you know what, I'm doing great, I don't need your money anymore.
Yeah.
What would happen? What would that create? She's like, my mother wouldn't know what to do with herself. I'm like, so what? It's not your problem.
You don't have to make sure she knows what to do with
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly. Are you willing to not keep playing the game?
Yeah.
That's what the monster is so much about.
Well, and it also makes me think, I mean, sometimes people, if they're getting all anxious and stuff, they're going to all these worst case situations and
Worst-case
stewing
scenario.
about them. But you can also actually use that as a tool. So if you did have this conversation, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, my mother would disown me. Well,
Okay.
could you
How
be
does
okay
it get
with
any
that?
better than that?
That could be a good thing. But it's, so not as a, let me think of the worst thing that can happen and stew and stew and stew on that, but just, well, if that did happen, would I actually be okay?
Yeah.
What could I do then?
Right.
It's one of the things I think of, Marilyn, is it's where we kind of go around and around and around and around. And to me, the thing with the monsters is you're going around and around, but every time you go around, you're making it bigger, 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 bigger,
Yes,
bigger, bigger,
exactly.
right? So there's also anything you can do to interrupt that circling around. And I find the way I like to look at that is shifting my energy.
Yes.
Because if I try to, sometimes when your head's spinning, if you're trying to think your way out of it, you're just still spinning.
Yeah.
But if you actually do something like move your body around
Yeah.
or call a friend and have a conversation, or like for each of us, it's a different kind of thing. For me, often getting out in nature,
Yeah.
shifts me. I can remember being in college and it was this beautiful campus on a river, and I'd get all worked up about things. And I would just go sit there was like woods looking over the water.
Oh, no.
And I would sit there until I shifted my perspective to
Cool.
these things about my studies and my friends and blah, blah, blah are little tiny things in the universe.
Yeah.
And I don't have to make them so big and feel at the effect of them. So that was the only tool I had then. It was go out in nature until I feel better. Now I have tools. You can just be like, oh, look at that. Boom. So, but it's finding what works for you and making the choice to shift that energy. And from there, you can see, how do I want to handle this?
That's beautiful. And I do something, and I've used it with my clients over the years, which is if you have a person that you're making greater than you, or even but it works best with persons. But what you want to do is find what cartoon character they are. To Minnie Mouse or the Roadrunner or whatever, and then shrink them to about that big and put them in the corner.
Oh, I like that.
That
sounds fun.
What that can create.
That sounds really fun. Well, and another one that I like this is an access consciousness tool for when you're going around and around, is you say this phrase, everything's the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing's the opposite of what it appears to be. And you can do that several times. Everything's the opposite of what it appears to be. Nothing's the opposite of what it appears to be. And it's like your brain can't make sense of it. And it just interrupts the swirly.
Yes.
And then there's more space for what next.
Right. Another thing that I do, because I live alone, I talk to myself all the time. If I'm doing one of those swirlies, I go, seriously, Marilyn? Really, seriously? You're doing a swirly for what reason? Oh, never mind. I think I'll go have a chicken leg or a glass of water or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and what that makes me think of it, it's like so often when we're in the midst of something like that, like I've got this huge monster, I'm worrying, I'm stewing, I'm, blah, 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 is also this kind of feeling of there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can change here. This person, maybe it's your boss or whoever, like they are who they are. I can't do anything about that. The thing is, you can always do something about you.
Yes.
And the space you're being, the energy you're being, the thoughts you're having.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is when you shift you, often the whole
Situation.
situation shifts
Yeah.
as well. And you always have that capacity to use whatever's in your toolbox to make that shift in the moment.
Yeah. Well, and we've been talking about the monster that's kind of outside of you, in the sense of, the person you don't want to stand up to, or all of that. But monsters can also show up as secrets that you're hiding. Like, I don't want anybody to know that I'm $50,000 in debt. I don't want anyone to know that whatever it is, that I'm drinking too much, that I'm in binge eating and throwing up. Of course, I work with addiction, so those are the things that come up. Or that I've been and still am in an abusive relationship. But it's these secrets that become these huge monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about put it out on Facebook and tell the world, but I would recommend finding someone who has your back, someone you can trust, that you can talk to, and someone who won't judge you, someone who's there as more or less kind of a listening post.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I get it. What's that creating, or what's going on? And they're not going to go tell anybody else, and they're not going to go, oh, you're bad, wrong, terrible, or anything like that. They're going to go, hey, I got your back. I'm here to support you. What do you require? What can we be and do with this?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so another thing, is your closet a dark, scary place? Like the first thing we went to was the monsters, right?
Yeah.
And the things that you blow up out of proportion to be so big, you feel you're at the effect of it and all. To me, another thing about closets is you put something in there, and maybe when you put it in there, it seemed useful and you wanted to hang on to it, but then it's like it's been in there 5 years, and you keep putting more stuff in the closet, and it becomes this thing that you don't even want to open because there's so much stuff in there and you don't know. And every time you look at it, you're like, oh, what do I do with all this?
Yes.
So to me, there's that aspect to a closet being a dark and scary place too. It's like these parts of yourself, parts of your life that you kind of been shoving. I'll deal with that later. I'm going to put it in the closet because I might need it, but I'm not sure. So let's talk about that some too. Like where we maybe aren't making it bigger than us, but we're also not willing to just look at it and deal with it.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because there was a class out of the box at Gary and Dane's ranch in Blyberville, Texas. And when I was reading over what to bring, what not to bring, it was basically, don't bring anything that you care if it gets a little dirty or dusty. It's a ranch, and I went into my closet and there was some, quote, kind of nice things in there and shoes. And I thought, I haven't used these in 2 or 3 years. I don't care if they get dirty and dusty. Why not?
Yep.
And that's the thing. If you can, well, it's really about hoarding. If you're willing to let go of hoarding all of your old things, and that's your clothes and shoes and bath towels and everything, but it's also your opinions, your points of view, your relationships, everything that you valued about the past. All of that can create a pretty scary monster.
Yes. Well, and it also, I don't know, it creates stuff you're at the effect of. There's, because like if you open up your closet, whether it's your actual literal closet or your metaphorical closet that we're talking about as well, like there's something about just actually taking something out and being present with it and going like, yes, no, hang on to this, don't hang on to this. About 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, I sold a house that was bigger. There was so much space, lots of closets, had plenty of room for all kinds of stuff I didn't need. And at the time, I thought I was going to be moving a long distance. So I was basically looking at everything with, would I pay to move this across the country? And it was amazing how many things I held on to because I had the room. I don't need to get rid of this. I have plenty of room in my closet. But that when I actually looked at it as is this something that I enjoy enough or is of value enough to me that I'd pay to move it across the country? Most of it went away. Right.
Sorry, I had sneezels.
You can do that with, you might be like, can I do that with a relationship? Actually, you can.
Absolutely.
Are there people in your life that you're spending time with just because you think you need to because of the relationship you have had?
Yes.
And maybe you're changing a lot and they're changing a lot, and it's not contributing to either of you the way it had been.
Absolutely.
What if you can look at it and go, would I pay to move this across the country?
Move this person across the country.
And if it's a no, it doesn't mean you have to shut them out of your life, but it might mean you choose to hang out with people that are more of a contribution to you in your life and that you enjoy being with.
Yes, absolutely. Pam and I were both out at the ranch in this class, Out of the Box. And it was a lot about structures. So what is all the structures you have about family?
Yeah.
And about relationships. I remember one therapist I had like 30 years ago told me, well, one of the measures of I don't even know what he said, like a good person or a stable person, something like that, was that they have friends from 20 and 30 years ago. And I'm like, really? Huh. People change.
Yeah.
But he was of the point of view, if you don't really change, you have a solid self and you don't really change, everything that is, would you please let that go? That's insane.
That sounds horrible to me.
That's me. Even at the time, I was kind of like, what? Well,
yeah.
I mean, and I did actually have someone I'd been friends with for about 20 years, but but later on, I'm like, this person is not going in the direction that I'm going in.
Yeah.
And not in a harsh way, just in a gradual way. Because all of this about don't change is one of the biggest monsters there is.
Yes. And that's the thing, like, a lot of times, say we have kids, we're around kids, we're expecting them to change. We're expecting them to not be the same today as tomorrow. Like their bodies are changing and their lives are changing, but it's like somebody hits adulthood and it's like, oh, this is who you are. And now you have to be this way. And hopefully you've already established your career and you're going to stick with that. And blah, blah, blah. Like that's so narrow.
Yes.
And it's coming from the idea that, well, after you grow up, you don't change very much. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know for me and Marilyn and a lot of our friends, change is like, yes, bring it on.
Bring it on.
And it gives you this ability to adapt to everything, whatever life's got coming up, that you have the resources to adapt and change no matter what.
And also give yourself some gentleness and kindness. I realized when I got back from this class that I changed certain things like whoa. Whoa. Okay. So like yesterday and today, I'm not doing a whole lot. I'm kind of hanging out at home with my cat. And he even didn't quite recognize me because my energy shift had been pretty big. So I had to, okay, here's the energy of who you know I am. And let's just hang out and see what gets created.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just, one of the monsters is, I got to keep going. I got to do this.
All the shoulds.
All the shoulds. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. I've got a few calls and I'm doing something else today later on. But other than that, you know what? I'm taking a little space.
Yeah.
And space is a place where monsters can't actually exist.
Yes. Well, and that whole thing of the shoulds, because, if I'm waking up and being like, well, in this role, as a mom, I should be doing this. And as a, business owner, I should be doing this and blah, blah, blah. It's like you can build all those things that you should be doing into a monster because it's like it's dictating you and your life and your day and your relationships and everything. And instead, if you go, what actually works for me today? Where am I at? What requires my energy and where can I put my energy and attention that will create more? both Marilyn and I, work with things in a way where, I mean, the list of things to do is always way more than anybody's going to do in a day. Right? So you can ask, where can I put my energy and my attention today? And that can help take all those shoulds and melt them. You were talking about structures. All those shoulds are the structure of how you think you should be today and what you should be doing and, how you show up and all these things. And you can melt that and be like, actually, what's required. And maybe what's required is you show up at your job at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
But then within that job and what you're doing, you can
Yeah.
be using these questions.
Yeah. And maybe what's required is that you take care of your kids, or in my instance, my very demanding kitty,
Your child kitty.
my child kitty, and you still make sure you have the space for you.
Yeah.
That's always really important.
And just
You have
notice
the
as
space.
Marilyn says that, there's more space.
There's more space. Yeah. And if you're really willing to be the space of you, there are no monsters.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's stuff you have to handle, but there really are no monsters.
Right. That is the key.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say that seems like a good place to.
I'm totally in agreement. Let's have our
Cue the music.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you next time.